I'm doing a head-to-head comparison of two of the most popular modeling putties on the market today on Ron's Trains and Things right now. Hi, I'm Ron of Ron's Trains and Things, and if you'd like to see more model railroad tips, tools, and techniques, then be sure and subscribe down below and click that little bell icon so you can catch future videos. In my modeling, I have always done a lot of kit bashing and scratch building with styrene. And whenever you're working with styrene, from time to time, you're going to need to fill some gaps and some seams or fill in some windows or other imperfections, which means you're going to need some kind of modeling putty. Now, years ago, I bought a large tube of Model Masters red putty, and I used it for a very long time, and I really liked the results that I got with it. Well, recently I ran out of that Model Masters red putty, and unfortunately, it is no longer on the market today. Therefore, needing a replacement for that red putty, I started asking around some of my model building friends who I knew also did a lot of work with styrene, and asked them what kind of putty they used and what they preferred. I got a lot of answers, but I had two that were the overwhelming top vote getters as far as recommended putties for use with styrene. One was Squadron Products White Putty, and the other was Tamiya Putty. Well, not knowing for sure which I would prefer, I decided to buy both and give them a try. Well, today I'm going to do a little head-to-head comparison for you, show you how these two putties work, what the similarities are, what the differences are, and show you some of the results that I've gotten from them. And hopefully that'll be helpful to you as you consider what putty you want to buy and use for your own styrene modeling projects. Now, before we get to the project, I want to tell you to be sure and watch all the way to the closing of this video, because I'm going to have a couple of very important announcements that you're going to want to catch. So be sure and stay tuned to the end so you can catch those. Now, let's move on over to the workbench, and we'll take a look at Squadron Putty and Tamiya Putty and see how they work. There are a wide variety of filler putties for hobby use on the market, so when I was looking for a replacement for my Model Masters red putty, I asked some other model building friends what they use. And by far, the two most popular putties among my modeling friends were Squadron Products White Putty and Tamiya Putty. Squadron also makes a green putty, but I was advised to use the white and not the green, so that's what I'm using today. My understanding is that the green putty is coarser and dries extremely fast, much more so than the white putty, which would be an issue, as you will see as we get a little further into this test. Having purchased both the Squadron White and the Tamiya putties, I thought it would be a good idea to try them out side by side to see how they perform in comparison. To conduct this test, I cemented 3 scraps of styrene together. I intentionally chose slightly misfitting pieces so there would be some slight gaps to fill, and after the cement had dried, I used the point of a hobby knife to scrape away a little bit of the material so I would have a deeper cavity to fill. I then sanded the test pieces smooth and marked the two sides, S for Squadron and T for Tamiya. The putties are easy to tell apart as the Squadron product is white and the Tamiya is gray. I actually made 2 of these test pieces to make sure that my results were consistent. I squeezed a bit of each project out onto my wax paper. Notice the Squadron putty has some separation of the product within the tube. I found that the product was majorly separated in the tube when I first received it. The only way I could get usable product out of the tube was to stand it up on the cap for several minutes. There was no separation in the Tamiya product as it came from the tube. I used my hobby knife blade as a trowel and applied the putty to the gaps in my test pieces. I then troweled them down as smooth as possible with the edge of my hobby blade. As is true with any kind of putty or plaster or spackle, it's best not to overwork this product as you apply it. I found both products to be fairly fast drying, which is convenient, but the Squadron putty seemed to dry so fast as it applied that it was hard to get very smooth on the application stage. The Tamiya Putty went on very smoothly, being slightly thinner and less fast drying than the Squadron Putty. When both products had thoroughly dried, I noticed that both showed some shrinkage in the area of the actual gap. Again, the Squadron Putty was more rough because it had dried so quickly during the application process. I sanded both seams lightly with some 220 grit sandpaper to taper the edges and to take off any excess buildup of the putty. I then sanded the test pieces smooth with some 400 grit sandpaper. Both products sanded and feathered rather well, although the Squadron Putty resisted the sanding a little more than the Tamiya Putty did. I applied a second coat of putty to each side in order to fill the area left by the shrinkage of the product, applying it exactly as I had done the first time. When dry, I sanded it as I had before, feathering the entire seam down to the styrene. What I got at that point was a very nice, smooth seam provided by both products. Ultimately, I found that the results I got from both products were very satisfactory. Personally, I preferred working with a Tamiya Putty because of the separation problem with the Squadron Putty and because the Squadron Putty tended to dry so quickly and go on rather rough as a result, requiring more aggressive sanding after it dried. Ultimately, these two issues with the Squadron Putty are probably related, although my understanding is that Squadron Putty always is extremely fast drying. That is my assessment of these two products, both good products, but the Tamiya Putty would be my personal pick. I like the Tamiya enough that I tried it on a project that I'm currently working on. I needed to finish off the seams on a model I'm scratch building. I applied some of the Tamiya Putty and sanded it smooth. I then painted it with primer. As you can see, once painted, the gap was perfectly filled and completely invisible. I am very happy with the results of this product, and Tamiya Putty will definitely be on my workbench from now on. Well, there you have it. I believe that either one of these putties would be a good buy and is a worthwhile product as far as use with styrene to fill gaps and imperfections. Personally, I do prefer the Tamiya Putty and the way that it works. My biggest issue with the Squadron Putty, again, was that separation that I got in the tube and not really finding a good way to get the product to remix, having to store it upside down. It's just a little problematic to work with. But once you get it out on the pallet, it worked fairly well as well. So I hope that that helps you as you think about using modeling putty and which ones that you might want to purchase. Now, before we close today, I have a couple of announcements that I want to call to your attention. First of all, I want to remind you that we are smack dab in the middle of the Down and Dirty Weathering Contest 2. I've already had several people who have declared their intention to enter, have gotten the rules, the judging sheets, the thumbnail that they need to be able to make those videos, and I hope more of you will enter the contest as well. Now, those of you who were familiar with the first version of the Down and Dirty contest last year, please know that this is a simplified version. We're only weathering one freight car and only making one video this year, so a lot less demanding as far as that part is concerned. But you can get all of the official rules and details as well as the judging sheet and the splash screen in two places. First, I would encourage you, if you're interested in the contest at all, to join the Facebook group that is connected with the contest. And I'm going to put a link to it near the top of the description right down below this video. You can go there, join the group, and there in the document section, you'll find the rules, the judging sheets, and that thumbnail. Or, if you would rather, you can just send me an email at ronstrainsandthings@gmail.com. And again, that's in the description down below as well. Make sure you put DDWC2 in the subject line and just ask for those rules, and I'll be glad to send you the rules, the judging sheets, and the thumbnail right to your email. The second thing that I want you to be aware of is the fact that the latest version of the Modeler's Journal has just recently come out, and there's a link to it in the description down below. Those of you who have watched my channel for a while know that I write a regular column in that quarterly online publication. It's a free subscription. You can read the magazine for free. And this episode features Jason Jensen, who some of you might be familiar with here on YouTube or from Facebook. He does some fantastic model building work and is also starting to produce some kits that some of you can purchase and build as well. It's a great installment of the Modeler's Journal this time, so be sure and find that link down below. Go check it out. I know that you'll enjoy it. Well, if you enjoyed this putty comparison video today, here's a link to some more model building videos that I think you'll enjoy as well. I hope you'll check them out. Also, take a look at the description down below for those links that I just mentioned, as well as links to my Amazon page, my Amazon Pick of the Week, my Patreon page, and places where you can connect with me on social media. Well, be sure and join me each Tuesday as I bring you more great model railroad videos, and I look forward to seeing you then. Lizzie?